Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast.
Oh gosh, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You leave me no choice. Here comes the smolder.
Wait, you like that?
No,
you don't like that?
No, I don't like that.
No, how about that? You like that?
A little better.
Bread makes you fat?
Does this count as annoying?
Just tell me what you want me to fuck!
Not you, and not you.
Okay, I think it's time to take off your clothes and jump me.
$1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool?
I drink your podcast! I drink it up!
Welcome to I Drink Your Podcast, the podcast that focuses on movies from a single year in a year, and we are in the middle of our 2010 season. And with me today is my co-host Emily.
Hello, everyone.
And we have our good friend Brose from the podcast Chatflix. Hello, Brose.
Yes, g'day. How is everybody? I threw in a g'day just so I sounded more Aussie because I don't always sound that Aussie. I don't know if I've told you guys, when I was traveling in the States a few years ago, like 4 or 5 times people stopped me to ask me where I was from, but guessed where I was from first. So I got someone asked me if I was Irish, and someone asked if I was a New Zealander. Someone asked if I was English, and I understand that. Someone asked if I was from Zimbabwe. What the hell is that one? How obscure is... And then I met some white guys from Zimbabwe, and I get it, but it's such an obscure... It was an American that asked me. An American said, "Oh, are you from Zimbabwe?" I'm like, "No, I'm from Australia." So I often, whenever I travel, I always say g'day a lot. I say mate a lot, and
hopefully they'll figure it out.
crank up the Aussie slang. I do a bit of a Ben Mendelsohn kind of absent stare and and kind of speak in a deep voice. "Yeah, mate, we'll just get stuck into that then, right? I just want you to listen to what I'm saying, mate. What are you doing, mate? Come on, mate."
Oh, my God.
Anyway, it's good to see you guys again. It's been ages. It's been forever.
It has been
Great
way
to
too
see
long.
you. Yeah, you were last on with us for Stardust. That was like 100 episodes ago for us.
Wow. Okay. So obviously I made an impression.
Oh, stop.
Although in your defense, I appeared in Stardust and I appeared in the compilation episode.
Yes, you did.
So, I've kind of been on 2 episodes.
And we joined you for Independence Day. It was a good time.
Oh, that's right. You did too. That was good.
It's just
fun.
really fucking hard to record when we're this far apart from each other.
That's true. Although 11 a.m. here for me is pretty good. If it's 8 o'clock at night is good for you, that's all right. That's good. This works.
All right. Well, now this will work forever.
Before we jump into Animal Kingdom, let's go through what's in your glass. And Emily, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm just drinking straight Coke because there's a lot of Coke in this movie. And there was a Coke and bourbon at some point, but I really just wanted the Coke tonight. Straight up Coke.
Emily, are you gay, mate? Are you? I don't care if you are.
I hope everyone knows that that's from the movie.
That's from Animal Kingdom. That is from Animal. That was Ben Mendelsohn, who's the legend. Mendo. He's a god. I'm just drinking water because it's 11 a.m. here in Australia.
Yeah.
And I considered, here's an interesting thing. I was thinking I should drink an Australian beer because this is an Australian film, an iconic Australian beer. But this film doesn't have any iconic Australian beers. It has obscure kind of microbrews and stuff, or it has different labels and stuff. So VB, Victoria Bitter. VB is a huge, iconic, nationally drunk. It's our version of Budweiser or whatever. And they don't drink VB in this, whereas these characters in real life would definitely drink VB, especially 10 years ago. Definitely are drinking VB. But in this film, bourbon and Coke and some obscure microbrews. So I didn't have to grab a VB because it tastes like utter shit. But I was going to do it in honor of Animal Kingdom, and I didn't have to. That's what I'm saying. What are you drinking?
I went with the bourbon and Coke route, but I went bourbon and diet caffeine-free Coke.
Oh,
so you can go straight to bed after this.
That's right, because I want to go to sleep tonight. This week we did watch Animal Kingdom, an Australian film, which is available to watch on Fubo or the Showtime app here in the United States.
What the hell is Fubo, Ben?
Fubo.
I just read it wrong. What's Fubo?
Fubo is like a live streaming TV service.
Oh, right. There you go.
Yeah, kind of like YouTube TV.
In Australia, it's streaming on Stan, which is a streaming service owned by one of the broadcasters, free-to-air broadcasters. And so, yeah, luckily I do the justwatch.com search. Where is it? Where can I watch it?
Yep.
And then Stan popped up and I thought, well, I've got Stan. I can watch
Okay, Brose, I know you've recently passed 300 episodes in Chatflix.
We
What
have.
else has been going on with you in Chatflix?
Things have been a bit slow, so I don't know if there's any crossover between our listeners and your listeners. I hope there is, and if there's anyone that hasn't heard of Chatflix, you should go and check it out. There's over 323, 234, a lot of episodes. I'm sure, I think I spoke to some of you guys. I'm not sure who I spoke to now. Emily, I think I did. But I had a stroke last year in June, and I was in hospital for about 6 weeks, which was not fun. So this Chatflix slowed down a bit, obviously. Hard to record episodes when you're in rehab. And so then since I've got out of hospital and I've been rehabbing at home, it's kind of become kind of fortnightly, which is not my preference. We were doing 2 episodes a week at one point. Now we're down to fortnightly. So it's just a bit slow going. Sometimes I wake up on Monday and I can't be bothered doing anything until about Thursday. So it's been a bit slow going and it's a bit disappointing. But we've done some cracker episodes this year so far. I was mentioning before we recorded Battlefield Earth went up recently, which is an awful film. I'm just trying to think what else we've done lately. I feel horrible. Well, we just looked at Doctor Strange 2. No one else needs to look at that one either.
I've heard some not great things about it, and I'm kind of disappointed.
It's interesting because I feel like the wheels have fallen off the Marvel universe, but no one's told the fans yet. But they'll work it out eventually. They'll work it out. What else have I looked at recently? Murder on the Orient Express was good fun. Oh, Die Hard with a Vengeance, finally finishing the trilogy of films there. It's great they stopped. It's great they stopped at 3. I mean, that's the perfect. It's probably one of the most perfect trilogies in film history because they didn't go for the cash grab and they stopped at the 3rd film. Like that's
right. They definitely did not do one in 2007 that we recorded.
No. Vengeance is the last one, right? That's correct.
That's it.
Yeah. It's the best one. Yeah, right. That's it. Oh, we looked at Top Gun Maverick too. My God, that film is amazing.
Ben had a fun time with that one.
Just the most fun film. Like if you're going to be like completely ignore minorities and females, at least make it that much fun, you know? Like at least like that film. Like who knows Tom Cruise better than Tom Cruise? And God, did he nail that? Like, wow.
Brose, we haven't asked you this question before, but we're very curious. What's the movie that made you fall in love with movies?
I don't know. It's interesting because when I was growing up, I don't know. I'm the 3rd child of 5 children. So a lot of my older brother's only like 2 years older than me. So a lot of my influences, a lot of my pop cultural influences come from my older siblings, right? I don't know if you guys have that. I don't know if you guys are middle children or younger children.
Middle.
So we ended up watching a lot of action films as a kid because my brother was obsessed with war, whether it was Reagan era style action films or whether it was actual historical Anzac stuff from World War II, or like he was obsessed with army and war and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we watched and you know, quite inappropriately, Commando was one of our favorite films as a kid.
That's such a good movie.
It's such a great film. It's so underrated. And we watched all of the Schwarzeneggers and the Van Dammes and the Stallones. We watched all that stuff. So that were very prevalent when I was a kid. But then my dad always liked comedy. So comedy was a big thing in our house. We watched, I'm trying to think, Wildcats with Goldie Hawn and Private Benjamin were big. And I'm trying to think what else. Went on the TV. I mean, Ghostbusters was huge when I was a kid as well. So they're quite prevalent. And then I was a huge Muppets fan. So all the Muppets films.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, obviously the Muppet Show was 1975 to 1980-ish, 1979 or 1980. So that was before my time. So I was watching everything on reruns. So you kind of had to chase it to find it. And this is, I don't know, I'm a bit older than you guys perhaps, but if you couldn't rent it, and you couldn't rent every film, they weren't all available, especially old films. You kind of just had to wait for it to pop up on TV at some stage. And so, yeah, the Muppet movie, for instance, I remember seeing once when I was about 4, and it took me like 5 more years to see it a second time before it popped up on a Saturday afternoon or whatever it was. And it's like, yeah, so it's kind of like, you know, it was a different era. Not everything was on demand. Not everything could just be downloaded or whatever.
Man, I just feel so bad for old people.
But it was so much more exciting. The only equivalent I can think of in 2022 is when you're listening to the radio, like proper broadcast terrestrial radio, and they play a song that you like, and you get excited, like you're part of that song. You ever get that one? Like a song comes, it's like, oh, I love this song. This is awesome. What a great choice, because I made this choice. We've all made this choice together. Like that's kind of what it was like my entire childhood with film, TV shows, and God, when 66 Batman got replayed It got played in the afternoons here in Australia on Network 10. And it's like, it hadn't been on TV for a few years, and we used to love watching it when we were young kids, and now we're kind of older kids. It's like, this is so exciting that Batman's back.
This boy who's currently being looked after.
Anything you do say can be used as evidence in any later court appearances, you understand?
Yeah.
Tell me if you agree with this. This boy who's being looked after, he knows who you are. And you've done some bad things, sweetie.
Animal Kingdom currently sits at 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and was nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. It did also win 8 AFI awards, which are now known as the AACTA Awards, on 16 nominations.
We call them actors.
The actors? Okay.
That makes way more sense.
Is that like the Australian equivalent of Oscar?
Yeah, except it's following the tradition of the BAFTAs, but it's the actors. So it's the Australian something television, screen and television, it's all that. It's the bullshit. We used to call them, what do we used to call them? Did you say the
AFI?
Yeah, the AFIs, Australian Film Institute Awards. It makes much more sense. The actors is a dumb name. But anyway.
This movie is directed and written by David Michôd, and this is his first feature film. He previously wrote the 2009 movie Hesher, which I have heard of but have not seen. It's a Joseph Gordon-Levitt movie. His directorial efforts before this were in the form of shorts, for which he did win an AFI for Best Original Screenplay for the one he made in 2007, Crossbow.
Which had...
Joel Edgerton
one of these guys. Joel Edgerton, yeah. So Joel Edgerton, just quickly, him and his brother, I believe it is, they make a lot of short films together as well. They produce... so there's a chance they produce Crossbow. So they kind of act... That was part of them learning to be film actors, is basically they went and made as many short films as they could, and they helped other artists produce them as well. So they're quite generous in that way as well, which is really cool.
Let's start with him then. Joel Edgerton, many would recognize him as Uncle Owen from Star Wars.
Or from King Arthur.
Or from King Arthur, yep. He was also in Ned Kelly and Smokin' Aces.
Prior to this, obviously.
In Australia here, he was in a TV show called The Secret Life of Us as well, which was a massive show on television, and it was like record viewers on, I think it was a Sunday night show even back then. I can't remember. I know my siblings used to watch it. I didn't really watch it. But a few of the actors from this were on Secret Life of Us, but he was in like most of the episodes, 32 odd episodes of that.
Cool.
And he's also in, I love this. This is a little anomaly in the Australian film kind of history. There's a film called The Night We Called It a Day. And The Night We Called It a Day is a very specific Australian story of when Frank Sinatra came to Australia on tour, and then there was an incident and he was basically deported. Frank Sinatra, or he cracked the shits and left. I can't remember which way it went. So his tour got cut short. Frank Sinatra didn't hang around. And Joel Edgerton's one of the leads in that film. But Frank Sinatra is played by Dennis Hopper.
Okay.
Which is, again, another ongoing history in Australia where we get at least one American actor to come and be in the film, or an English actor. The other one, Spotswood, which is an amazing film, has Anthony Hopkins in it. And it's such a brilliant, hilarious film. But it's that kind of, let's throw an international artist in there to try and sell some more tickets. He kind of sits in a weird spot as an actor. Do you see him as a star, or do you see him more as a character actor? How do you perceive him over there? Because here he's an Australian that's doing amazing overseas, so he's kind of held up as a superstar, which is fine. But
I really love the movie Warrior, so that's always the movie I associate with him. And he's a star in my mind based on that movie because he's so good in it.
Yeah, he's definitely, I think he's a great actor too. And in this film, he's not in it for long, but the scenes he does, he just steals. He's just amazing. I mean, he's not in many scenes with Mendo, which helps, but he's actually absolutely a scene stealer.
Well, speaking of Ben Mendelsohn, he was mostly known for Australian TV and film work prior to this, but he did star in Australia in 2008 and Knowing in 2009, and he was on the TV show Neighbours, which was a huge show over there. Still is.
37 years, Neighbours. It literally just finished last week. It had its last episode. Mendo didn't come back, but Guy Pearce, who we'll get to later, he did. We'll talk about it a bit more later on, I think.
Speaking of.
But, I mean, the list of Australian stars that have been on Neighbours is extensive. Russell Crowe was on Neighbours, for example. Mendo was on. Guy Pearce was on. Kylie Minogue. I don't know if you're aware of our tiny Aussie songstress. She was on Neighbours as well. So there's a lot of actors went through there. It was kind of a rite of passage. I don't know if you guys in America have the same kind of thing. I don't know if there's like soaps don't really bleed into mainstream.
Not so much. No, I mean there are some that have made the jump, but it's not nearly as prolific as what Neighbours is known for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a training ground for some, but it's also, some actors go to Neighbours and never get out, so it's also that as well. Mendo is. It's interesting when I was looking through his career before talking about him today. Mendo is interesting because I've never thought about it before, but he is one of our greatest actors. And I've always loved him as an actor. I've always thought he was an amazing actor. But when you look through what he's achieved in the last 35 years of his career, it's really, really impressive. Like Star Wars Rogue One, he's amazing in that, like just out of nowhere. And he's in The Dark Knight Rises. Is it The Dark Knight Rises?
Yeah.
And he's phenomenal in The Dark Knight Rises. And they're just small character pieces. This is a great cast, and it's right at a point before all these guys kind of moved on to the rest of their careers and exploded. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. Guy Pearce had exploded before this. He was Priscilla in Priscilla Queen of the Desert, L.A. Confidential, Memento, Time Machine, Hurt Locker. A very prolific actor prior to this, and went on to do some great stuff after this too.
Yeah, absolutely. And he came back to Neighbours for its finale, and he is phenomenal in the final episode of Neighbours as well. He's such a great actor. Yeah.
I like those people who pay respects to their roots. Like I appreciate people who are willing to do that.
The flip side of Neighbours, and Home and Away is the other soap opera here that is prolific as well. There's the flip side is a lot of those actors, if they come back to Australia to promote XYZ film, people always want to ask them about Neighbours, or they always want to ask them about their soap opera. So Guy Pearce is definitely one of those guys that has told interviewers, shut up, I'm not talking about fucking Neighbours anymore. I've just made LA Confidential, you dickhead. And he did that a lot. He was quite aggressive about not wanting to talk about his past. But you're right, it's great that he came back to tribute what launched his career. It's amazing. And he's such a great actor.
Last actress we're going to call out in this one is Jackie Weaver. She was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in this movie. She had a 47-year career even prior to this movie. And this role was written with her in mind.
And she fucking nails it.
She's so good.
Yeah.
She's so good. Yeah. It's great too because everyone in Australia knows Jackie Weaver. She's been on TV for every year. We grew up with her. She was on TV before I was born. She was on TV when I was a kid. She was on TV after I'd grown up.
Oh, so she's like your mom/grandma for all of Australia then.
Yeah, you just kind of, her. But yeah, so this film was also one of those moments when she got nominated for the Oscar here in Australia. It was like, finally, she's getting credit for being the amazing actor we know that she was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of pride here in Australia just for her to get nominated.
Animal Kingdom was a movie that Emily and I had not seen. Emily did write a synopsis for it. Emily, what did you think this movie was going to be about?
Can buckle your seatbelts. I originally was going to make some sort of joke about how I knew this was an Australian film and it said something about the Animal Kingdom, obviously, title. And I was going to say, oh, you know what? This movie is just a ripoff of The Lion King, which is a ripoff of Kimba the White Lion. But I decided to go with a different animated movie, one of Ben's favorites. So Animal Kingdom is a documentary following the real-life footage of the story that inspired the greatest animated film of all time, Madagascar. However, instead of a zebra, lion, hippo, and giraffe returning to the jungle, it's a kangaroo, platypus, emu, and dingo. The four friends mistakenly escape the zoo in New York and are accidentally released into the Australian outback, and this documentary follows them as they try to survive the real world. Spoiler alert. They all die from either starvation or being eaten or disease. Thank you to David Attenborough for your glorious narration, as always.
I really wanted to see that movie until they all died.
I just picture David Attenborough just depressingly and very calmly saying, and the dingo, very thin, collapsed, unable to satisfy its hunger.
Wow. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy, which you don't get often in animated films. So it's kind of a nice twist. That's
right. So this was like a real documentary, though, but it inspired, and the animated people are like, "Oh no, we gotta make it happy. We're gonna add penguins and change the animals.
Gonna add penguins
and go to Madagascar because fuck Australia.
Australia's not exotic enough. Apparently, it's got to be Madagascar."
Well, that is not the movie that we got, sadly, because I would like to see that movie. But Brose, could you read the DVD cover synopsis for us? Straight off the back of the DVD cover.
Following the death of his mother, the young Jay Cody goes to live with his estranged gangster relatives, with conflict escalating between his family of criminals and the police's armed robbery division. Jay finds himself at the center of a cold-blooded vengeance plot. As he naively navigates his way through the criminal underworld, he is forced to question where his loyalties lie as he tries to decipher who he can trust and who can protect him as he struggles for his own survival. Wow, that sounds dramatic. I want to see that film. I have seen that film. Oh, good. It worked out well.
Now, this movie is based on a real Australian crime family. Is that correct?
Oh,
Kind
geez. Okay.
Putting you on the spot a little bit. The Pettingills?
Okay. Yeah, I guess so. Look, I know a little bit about a local crime, true crime stuff, and I'm sure I have seen stuff about the Pettingills before. The difference is this film is kind of updated in terms of when it's set. Although it kind of feels like it's a bit 90s, but it's not fully 90s. As at one point, Jay gets dropped off and it's a very modern car, like a 2005 model car or something. So, but other than that, it feels very 90s otherwise. And the Pettingills would have been in the 90s, I'm sure. It wouldn't have been set as recent as this film is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, there was definitely elements of a crooked police division, but I think it was tidied up again a lot earlier than this film is set. So it's kind of transposing those stories. And that's one of the things when I was watching it, I found a bit interesting is that it's loosely based on true things. The other thing too is a lot of the people behind this film are from Sydney. They're not from Melbourne, but this film seems to be set in Melbourne. Not that you see a lot of it. Not a lot of it's completely recognizable as Melbourne or Sydney. So it also feels like they brought a bit of the Sydney stuff in. Sydney had a much bigger problem with there was a particular police officer, or he was a captain or whatever he was in charge, a detective, Roger Rogerson, who allegedly had a team of police that would go and execute criminals, allegedly.
Wow.
But yeah, so I mean, there are elements of reality, and that's definitely one of the things that rang true to me. But it does feel fictionalized and slightly more sensationalized.
Oh,
I think one of the big things is in the 90s here in Australia, there was Carl Williams was like a drug dealing kind of kingpin crime leader here, and he murdered a lot of people. He murdered his adversaries. He murdered their hitmen. He went after them in a big way, which obviously then resulted in them coming back after him, and they murdered his lieutenants as well. He survived, but there's an element of that in here as well. But one of the things is, and one of the things this film doesn't quite do, but it kind of does, but it doesn't quite do, is that whenever criminals start shooting each other en masse, then law enforcement clamp down 300%, and it's usually stopped pretty quickly because it's pretty important for governments, for instance, to stop that kind of unbridled murderous behavior. Whereas in this film, it's all internalized rather than externalized.
mm-hmm.
The police don't get the win. Whereas in Australia, that's what happened. The police doubled their effort, tripled their efforts, and nailed it all down. And because once it starts bleeding out into the public outside of criminals killing criminals, that's not good for governments or police, right? Politically, it's not good. So that's an interesting part of this film that I found a bit less true.
Right. I find it fascinating that just generally we have a lot of crime and dramatic movies like this where there's like some sort of family element and there's either drugs or crime or some sort of armed robbery or whatever it is. And I guess I always just assume these are make-believe because I have no real interest in the reality of those kinds of things. I know that there are tons of people that love the show Narcos. I have no interest in it, but I know that people are really obsessed with that sort of thing. Or like everyone loves The Godfather, right? And Godfather 2. I don't know about Godfather 3 if people like it or not, but similar sort of crime bosses, the mob sort of thing. And so anytime something like this comes to my brain and I go, oh, okay, cool, there's a movie about this that is kind of broadening my horizons, I found it very, very different from anything else I've ever seen. And I think it might be because it's Australia. I don't know if I'm know how to explain why, though. It just felt very different from anything else I'd ever seen.
Yeah, I think that difference that you're feeling comes from the director wanted to make this like big, sprawling, grand crime epic. And that I feel is like the opposite of what we got, which is we got this really like small insular story. And I
Very
think
intimate
that
film,
that
yeah.
is what makes it so different is it's focused just on this family. It's not going out. A lot of the scenes just take place in the home, conversations between the family. It's not watching them go on crime exploits. It's literally just handling the crime within the family, and it's about the relationships that they have.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never heard that it was going to be a sprawling epic. That's amazing because this film, like you're saying, is the opposite. There's so many intimate choices with the camera in this film. It's insane. There's a lot of it's almost got a documentary feel, not quite, but a lot of handheld. The cameras are a fair distance from the action. You're observing it from a distance. You're not necessarily right up close for some of the more emotional moments. There is we're just some guy that happens to be up close and personal with these people observing, doesn't feel anything like a big epic at all, does it? But he couldn't possibly have had the money to make this into a big epic kind of film either, I imagine.
Yeah, because I read he wanted to make it Goodfellas. That's what he was shooting for.
Yeah, right, okay.
Do you think that would have worked?
Do I think it would have worked?
Yeah.
As a big, sprawling, like 10-year
Right.
epic of crime? I think it could have worked if they started off showing us like how the crime family started. It's not Pope like getting released and coming out of hiding, but it's we see him go into hiding and what caused that, how the relationships were formed within the family. I think a story like that could have worked. I don't think it would have had the same impact on the viewer as this movie had, because by the end of this movie, like I was fully invested in every single one of the characters.
I completely agree. I also just kind of wonder maybe it wouldn't work just because it has been done like that before. You know, when you said that this movie was really internal and intimate, I was like, oh, duh, fuck, those are the words that are floating in my brain, but I can't put them together right now. And that's exactly the internal feeling that I had as I was processing this movie.
The other thing too is if you aim to do what Scorsese or Coppola have already done, and you're doing it on a much smaller much smaller budget, and visually it's not nearly as spectacular as New York or Goodfellas is New York too, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you don't have that same visual feast and you don't have that budget, like the music budget alone for Goodfellas, I imagine was bigger than the whole budget for this film. So, and the music is such an important part of Goodfellas as everything else is. Like it's a drop needle kind of film. So if you don't have those elements to bring into it, then you're just going to look less than. So why not do something different than rather than less than? And I wouldn't be surprised if this type of film influenced Scorsese in some ways as well, because if you look at what was his film he did for Netflix? The
Irishman.
The Irishman, yeah. The Irishman has a little bit more of these intimate moments and these family moments that perhaps aren't as common in his earlier films. So, but yeah, I mean, I think they made the perfect choice not to do a big. Well, he absolutely would not have got the money here in Australia. I don't know if people know, Australian films are often co-funded, if not fully funded, by our government.
Oh, had no idea.
So at the start of this film, you'll see Film New South Wales, I think, pops up as one of the first credits. They funded, it's a government-funded organisation, and they funded or partly funded this film. You can get private funding, but it's a lot less common in Australian film. But yeah, so this film, they just would never have got that much money. Crocodile Dundee, which was a much higher budget film, I think they sourced their own funding and had some government funding. So,
with this story being so small and insular, though, that is, I think, one of the reasons that we get these great performances. Because I think if you're going with a little more grandiose filmmaking like Scorsese tends to do, the performances kind of fall into the background. That's not the case here. The performances are the selling point of this movie, and we get some great ones in this one.
Oh, for sure. They are definitely the forefront of everything in this movie because you do feel very connected to the family, and even the relationship between Jay and Nikki, his girlfriend. You just feel the tension, the connections, the sadness when I think Craig just starts sobbing at one point. You feel these emotions really deeply in your soul as you're watching this movie.
Yeah, James Freshville is Jay. We didn't mention him at the top. It's an amazing performance for such a young man with so much work to do in this film. And he plays it very deadpan. very. I guess he's a bit wounded even before all the events take place, and he's a bit shy and he's a bit anxious. Just an incredible performance, and there's so many layers to what he's doing, and it looks like he's doing nothing, but he is working so hard, and the chemistry with him and is it Nikki, Jay and Nikki is great chemistry for two young actors as well. You don't always get that, but yeah, it is. That performance is amazing. I mean, all the way down the line, the performances are amazing. I imagine they wouldn't have had a lot of time to film this film, so I don't know if they had a rehearsal period beforehand or not. Jackie Weaver, I mean, just reinvigorated her career. She basically started a Hollywood career, as you said, 37 years into her acting career, and she's doing great guns in the States still. She's popped up in all kinds of things. She was in Widows more recently, and it's so weird seeing her with an American accent. But you get the feeling like Jackie Weaver off camera is, except for the nefarious kind of attitudes, is not much different to her character on screen, but it's just such a wonderful... You feel like she was mothering them off camera, don't you? You get that feeling that she was kind of guiding them, not as manipulative, perhaps, as her character in this, but I don't know. She's an evil witch, but you just want her to look after you, don't you?
I think we can all agree that we really loved this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we want to just go right into our favorite parts?
Yeah, let's just jump straight into the good. Let's talk about the winning. Emily, I think I know who won for you.
Well, I kind of changed my mind just because I think we all can agree with my initial thoughts, but I did want to call out the music in this movie.
Ah, you stole mine then.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Go.
I'm a bitch.
No, you're good.
I actually wrote that down initially, like right from the start, because I didn't really understand where this movie was going, but it always felt like it had this really rumbling, churning water sound to it, where it was always moving and always building to another moment. And it had on top of it these gorgeous and melodic strings, and there was just really intricate woodwinds. And it really was so great when it would just disappear and come back for those perfectly timed moments.
Yeah.
And such moments as Joel Edgerton being dead the first 20 minutes of the movie, where that came out of nowhere. Jackie Weaver, grandmother, showing that, oh, just kidding, I want to kill my grandson because I can't have my beautiful sons in jail, and even the ending, just all of the pieces, it was beautifully timed and added so much to this film.
Yeah, I completely agree that there was like almost a persistent hum underneath a lot of the movie. Like it wasn't like this grandiose score or anything. It was just like this persistent, like pushing us through, just like a soft, low noise in the background for the entire movie. And then when it left, you would notice that it was not there anymore.
Oh, yes.
And then it's like, it was almost more effective in not using music than it was in using music, because that music was always there. And then when it wanted you to pay more attention, it would go away. And I thought that was just such a cool way of doing it. And not being distracting, but more just emphasizing things by not being
impactful.
Like this. Yeah, it's not this bombastic like sound or cacophony to like jolt you back into attention. It's like
I love him, but wouldn't work for this.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about this film too is that I think I felt anxious for most of it, and the music is a big part of that. I mean, Mendo's psychopathic performance, but the music is just the whole time. You just you're never comfortable. You're never allowed to feel comfortable, and the music is a part of that. It's always kind of keeping you on the edge, and it's just it's really powerful.
Brose, did you have a winner that wasn't the composer?
For me, I think I'll go back to what we were saying a little bit earlier. I think the cinematography in this film is spectacular. And the choices made, for example, one of the most powerful scenes, and it was powerful in part because of the camera choices. One of the most powerful scenes is when Nikki's parents find out that she's passed, and they're in the parents' bedroom. The dad's on the phone. The mum's kneeling down in front of the bed crying, and the son's looking a bit lost.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's such a powerful scene, but it's shot in their bedroom from outside their bedroom. Mm-hmm. All we see is what we can see through the doorway, the frame of the doorway, and everyone's framed inside the doorway, inside the shot, and it is so powerful and it's so insane and devastating. Like we're prying in on a moment we aren't allowed to see or we're not supposed to see. And that, like, it's just blew my mind. I mean, it's a devastating moment in the film anyway, but the way it's handled, if they were in the kitchen and it was the wider shot we'd seen earlier and it was a bit more sitting around the table eating pizza with Roseanne kind of feel, it wouldn't have had the power that peering into the bedroom from the hallway has in that moment.
I like to think that it's a scene in that bedroom that we're not allowed to see because we as the audience are rooting for this crime family. Like, as much as they're the bad guys of this movie, like, you're rooting for them the entire time. You want them to kind of get away because that's the way that they're framed. Well, in rooting for them, this girl ended up dead. So now you got to stay outside of that room because you're not a part of this grief because you're part of the reason that she's dead.
Right.
Yeah, right. I don't know if I ever rooted for the family.
Ben does. Ben's always a big fan.
I don't know if I see them as anti-heroes. I see this more as a bit more like Godfather 3, which I hate. This is them falling apart. We never get to see them as on top of the world. We watch them slowly deteriorate and self-implode rather than celebrate. And I think that's why, for example, it's interesting, we don't see any of the bank robberies that they have allegedly committed. We only see the devastating deaths that they cause as a result of the police chasing them. Because if we saw the bank robberies, then we'd be more inclined to like them. Especially in Australia, we have this tradition. I don't know if you've ever heard of Ned Kelly and Ben, I can't remember Ben's surname, that we have these anti-hero bushrangers from the kind of settlement era here in Australia 200 odd years ago. And we hold them up as heroes. And they weren't heroes. They were robbers. They were burglars. They went around and stole things and shot people. And Ned Kelly's last stand has been depicted in far too many films that I care to mention. And famously, he was hung in Melbourne, and I think "Such is life" were his famous last words. So very philosophical. But he's held up as an anti-hero, as someone to celebrate. And people have Ned Kelly tattoos or Ned Kelly stickers on their cars. He wore the bucket on his head, that big kind of iron mask to protect him
I'm
from
learning
bullets.
so much about Australia this episode, and it's exciting.
You can see it in a museum. We've got it in the museum here, the Ned Kelly Museum. But so, he is held up. And I think in this film, if they'd tended towards any of those more heroic elements of being a criminal, then they would have been more empathetic and more cheered more. Whereas by only showing the effects of crime, I think it makes them slightly less likable. And it would have been a bad choice to show the crimes. Because in a crime, the police look like pigs and the criminals look like underdogs. And in Australia, we love an underdog. So, yeah, I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting.
Right. And I think that it's not that they're anti-heroes. I think it's more that you have this overwhelming sympathy for each character that's on screen because each one of them has so many layers to them.
Yeah.
Where you're sitting there and watching Jackie Weaver play the grandmother. And in the beginning, you're like, oh, she's so caring and sweet. And she's really taking care of this family, and slowly, like, things get revealed where you're like, okay, I don't know if I trust this woman as much. Or like Pope in the beginning, yeah, terrifying. You hear all these stories, but when you actually meet him, he's super jumpy. He just wants to be with his friends. He doesn't know how to get out of this situation, and they feel desperate. And when Joel Edgerton's character Baz dies so fucking suddenly, for what seems like no reason, but you have this overwhelming sympathy for these characters where obviously you're going to be heartbroken for Nikki's family, but you can definitely you can feel a little bit sympathetic and empathetic towards these characters, which I think the way that they're written and performed is done so eloquently and perfectly.
Yeah, I guess I didn't see them as anti-heroes. It was more I'm rooting for this family because we're really focused on the familial relationships. Like, I want these people to be able to get along. Like, it also helps casting great actors that I recognize in those roles, even though they are bad guys. Like seeing Joel Edgerton, I like Joel Edgerton, so I like this. I like Jackie Weaver. I like Ben Mendelsohn. That helps.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does. I find it all very interesting because it's the way I see it structurally. Ben Mendelsohn's character Pope is reprehensible and he's horrible and he's an evil sociopath. But because he is so evil, the other characters who are arguably also evil seem a lot less evil. Yeah. So Ben Mendelsohn's character just like he's trying to get everyone out. He's trying to work out a plan. He's like trying to work out what happens after crime because it's gotten too much in crime.
And he's trying to help his friend.
Yeah, exactly. They're all like he's trying to help people out and help each other.
There are so many of those pieces that fit together so nicely. The music, how it's shot, the closeness, the way the characters interact with each other in just like an intimate way that does ramp up that tension to a place that I didn't imagine could happen in a film.
When you can create tension of something as simple as pulling out of a driveway.
Oh my God.
Him pulling out of that driveway was the most tense I was the entire movie. I'm like, what is going to happen? It's so good.
That fucking shot. Oh my God. That was definitely by far one of my absolute favorite shots of the entire movie.
When Pope rams the other car, is that the moment? Yeah.
Even before the ramming.
The whole lead
because
up,
you know something's coming. It's like, oh God, oh God, oh God.
Well, he gets to the house and he's talking to Nikki's dad, right? Jay's like, can you take me somewhere? And the way that he's asking is a polite, but you can see on his face and his body language that he is frantic. And we all know as the audience that fuck, Pope's coming. He's going to fuck everything up. And Nikki's dad like says, oh yeah, I guess we can do that. Let's slowly get up. And you're just sitting there going, why aren't we hurrying? and we buckle in. We slowly back down and even start driving before Pope comes and rams the car. It is done so well.
And the scenes that lead up to that help it become so impactful because you have Baz's killing, which is like this very mundane, slow thing that we don't see coming. And then you have the Craig killing, which he's like panicked. It's anxiety inducing seeing him like run around that house freaking out about it being monitored. And then you have Jay getting into that car where it's a mixture of both Baz and Craig, and you're like, I have no idea which way this is going to go.
It's insane, isn't it? It's insane. That the Craig moment is what I love about the way that's shot as well. If we're getting back to it's the shooting and the editing, it's the writing, it's the performances. He is paranoid because he's obviously drug fucked. But I love that as a viewer, we don't know if he's found a listening device or if he's just found something in the house that he thinks is a listening device. And obviously the police turn up. But we don't know if they've just called we find out that he'd let his mate know 24 hours in advance that he was coming. So we don't know if his mate just rang the police to dob him in. But I love how it kind of builds, the way he stuffs his stuff into a garbage bag to try and get back into his car. And like, it's just the way it builds all that kind of tension and the anxiety. And there's so many questions. And it doesn't matter what the answer to the questions are, but you're kind of left wondering, how did this actually happen? Like, did the police in the service station have him tracked? Like, who knows how it actually happened? But yeah, I like that element as well. It's not cut and dry. We don't see the wife making a phone call, or we don't know if the listening device is real or not. Like, yeah, it's quite remarkable.
Yeah, and I think the foundation of that is from the script. I really, really did love how it was written, where I honestly didn't know what I was going to expect at any point. And I feel like there are so many movies that I'll sit there and I'll go, oh yeah, this is going to happen. And then it does. This movie, I was going, okay, Joel Edgerton's not dead. He went into witness protection or something like that. Or, I'm coming up with these fabricated ideas of what's going to happen next. And none of it happens. It is completely throwing me for a loop every single second of the movie. And it's just so delightfully executed with every detail. And I'm so happy that I got a chance to actually watch this movie.
We all love this movie, but was there anything bad?
Yes.
Emily, what was bad?
Literally the only thing that bothered me about this movie in a bad way was the black and white robbery footage during the credits in the beginning of the movie. I really didn't like it. I thought at that point in the movie, we had Jay's mom died, right? And she was sitting on the couch dead, which I was like, okay, I don't know what's happening. Grandma picks him up, and then we go right into this really weird shaking and security footage of armed robbery, which I had no idea what was happening. But then it lands on this gorgeous shot of the title card, Animal Kingdom. But that entire, it completely confused the shit out of me. Now looking back on it, I go, oh, I get why it's there. But in the moment, I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Yeah, I didn't really pay attention to the opening credits.
How many times have you seen this, Brose?
I've only seen it twice, but
Okay.
I mean, there's the close-ups of all the stuff around the house, which I assume is Craig's house, and yeah, I guess there's those the black and white footage or stills, the kind of stills from a video camera or something. I guess they're a bit bizarre. It is weird. That's the only time we see any evidence of them robbing banks or
Right.
anyone robbing banks. But yeah,
I know it's such a specific thing.
I'm trying to think what its functionality is, rather than just, it's obviously not just something that's there for the sake of it, but I guess it's there to inform what these people are, but in a way that doesn't make them look like heroes in any way, or yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, it just like in the moment, I really had no idea what was happening. And so like looking back on it, maybe if I watch it a second time, I'll go, oh, this works better for me. But just how it stuck out compared to everything else in the movie, it didn't feel right. Like it was stylized in a way that I don't think fit the movie.
My bad, I don't even think is bad from a filmmaking standpoint. Grown men just need to not be carrying young girls to bed.
Well, yeah.
Because this is not the first movie that we've seen this year that there's been a scene like that, and
what was the other one?
Fish Tank.
Oh, that's right. Oh, but that whole thing was not. That was.
When Ben Mendelsohn, when Pope carries Nikki to bed the first time, he's not doing it innocently. Like that's supposed to feel creepy, and then it kind of is referred later on when he's carrying Nikki out of the house after he's killed her. So it's kind of the biggest problem. And one of the worst moments of the film, I actually stopped watching the film and then watched the rest of it at another time because it was kind of freaking me out.
When he kills her? When
he shoots her up. And it's kind of like, is he going to rape her?
Mm-hmm.
And then when he starts killing her, I'd forgotten that's what happened.
Yeah.
And it kind of freaked me out even more because I was expecting one thing to happen and then something worse happens. Although I think if he'd raped her, that would have been worse for the film, like worse to enjoy, not to enjoy, but you know what I mean, to view. But yeah, like I was getting very anxious, and then the way that what's his name sitting on the couch just going, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, Darren fucking did nothing.
Yeah, you should stop it. Why don't you stop it? But yeah, I mean that moment, like without him carrying her to bed in that first instance earlier in the film, I don't think it would have had quite the same impact later on as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. From a filmmaking and movie standpoint, I understand. Just as a PSA, don't bring young girls to bed unless it's your child. Just please, just leave them on the couch.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Yeah, just you don't need to touch a young girl. She doesn't need to be more comfortable. She's fine. Just you go to bed and leave her where she is. That's good advice. It's good advice.
Just good life advice.
Thanks, Ben.
I agree with that.
Brose, did you have anything about this movie you didn't like?
Not really. I love the tone and I love the performances. Like I think it's a film that was inside the director's head for a long time, and I think he's executed it very well. Some establishing shots would have been nice, but that's just for me. If I'm watching an Australian film, I want it to feel particularly Australian, and there are Australian moments in there, but I find it interesting. But other than that, I don't think there was anything particularly. Like I think he had this film sorted out. I think he's made what he wanted to make.
I'm glad to hear that perspective from you, just because, like me as an American, hearing anyone from Australia say mate like 20 times in a couple minutes, I'm like, oh yeah, this is very Australian, and that's kind of my go-to on it.
Yeah, and look, they're very Australian performances. These are very trying to say not cliche isn't the right word. They're not quite cliched Australians. They're not offering to put shrimps on the Barbie, although Mendo does have the Barbie cranking in the final scene. But they are very Australian characters, these guys. Even though they're criminals, they talk like this. They talk really Australian, which we don't all talk quite like that, but that's how they talk. But, they've got that element to it that I think for you guys would be quite exotic, I imagine.
So exotic.
Well, not in that terms, not in a tropical sense, but yeah, it's quite different.
How about weird? Anything that took you out of the movie?
Oh yeah, every time Jackie was kissing her sons on the mouth, I was like, please
God.
stop.
Yep.
Please stop. Because there was like multiple like seconds long, and then let me kiss you again.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Come here and kiss your mum.
Oh my God.
No.
Oh my
We had a guy,
God.
there's a guy I went to school with whose mum used to kiss him on the lips, and it was just freaked me out then in high school. And it freaks
If
me
it's
out
like
watching
a
it in the
peck,
movie.
I don't care as much, but like that was just let's just mash our lips together to make everyone uncomfortable.
It always takes me out of it when people get so emotional in scenes that they start to drool. And
Oh, the spit cry.
yeah,
What is
when
the
Jay
spit
just
cry?
full on like drools, holding on to Nikki,
Oh.
I was like, come on, man, like get it together. So that took me out of it a little bit.
His first love just died.
I get it, but
More emotional than when his mom died.
Yeah, exactly.
right,
And
yeah.
I didn't like when he used just a random towel to wipe his face after he'd been crying and then just dumps it on the floor in the bathroom as well. It's like, don't
How
leave it.
dare you? How
Don't
dare
leave it
you,
lying
Jay?
around. I mean, come on. Although that shot when he looks across and you see
The
Nikki's clothing hanging
swimsuit
on
or
the
the
towel
clothing
rack
or something.
is pretty emotional
Ugh,
moment. That was
I know. I
heartbreaking.
teared up at that.
Yeah, it's quite tragic.
Why don't we put a cork in this thing and talk about our final thoughts? And Brose, give us your final thoughts on Animal Kingdom.
Look, I enjoyed this film a lot when I saw it. I didn't remember some of the more intense stuff, so watching it again kind of reinforces those elements. But it was great to rewatch. It was just great. Like it's like we've said, the direction is expert. Like it's such an amazing director. It's a shame that directors of great Australian films go on to make average Hollywood films, but this is a spectacular film, and it's incredible to watch. And there's so many decisions. It's so well thought out, but it doesn't feel like it. It feels like an emotional roller coaster, which I think that balance. We've talked a lot about the technical elements of this film, but it doesn't get in the way of the emotion. It doesn't get in the way of the storytelling or the characterizations. The director doesn't get in his own way, essentially, and that's fantastic. So and it's great watching it 12 years later when a lot of the actors in this have become, if not huge stars, they've become quite solid stars internationally. So it feels like it's like, how did we get everyone back for one film? It's like, well, we didn't have to get them back. They hadn't gone anywhere yet. Even someone like Joel Edgerton was probably still traveling back and forth regularly, and Star Wars was shot here in Sydney. So, even though they were bigger names at that point, they weren't necessarily living in Hollywood yet. So, but yeah, I always enjoyed it I enjoyed it very much when I saw it. If anyone ever talked to me about it, I'd say I love this film, but it's nice to watch it again and be reminded why as well.
Emily.
I am so fortunate to have seen this movie and not know anything going into it. Seriously. I know that my expectations were something to do with animals, but wow, this movie exceeded expectations. I love my animated movies. I love David Attenborough. Did not get it, but this movie was well worth it. I still remember looking at the timestamp and going, oh my fucking God, it's 1 hour and 53 minutes. Are you kidding me? Because I'm not a big fan of long movies, but it didn't feel long. It felt compressed in a way where I was so excited to see what was happening next every single second. It built upon itself and had so many twists and turns. And I know that's kind of cliche sounding, but it really did. One of my favorite movies that I've seen in 2010 for sure.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Emily. Of the ones we've seen this year, especially of the crime ones, I think this is my favorite one that we've done. I love the actors in this. Even in the credits, because I knew nothing about this movie, when names started popping up, I'm like, ooh, like I was in. And the movie didn't let me down. It told this great story of a family, and the crime angle. Like, I just love the way all of the pieces kind of came together into this powerful movie where I didn't fully know where we were going. It had a lot of cliched elements, but I think it did enough of a twist on those elements to create something new and interesting. So highly recommend this one.
I feel really bad that we didn't really talk about Guy Pearce, but just shout out Guy Pearce. You did a great job.
Yes. Great mustache.
This is beautiful. Love the mustache.
What's your favorite idea? Mine is being creative.
How do you get the idea?
I just try to think creatively.
Brose, you haven't been here since we switched from intense Battle of Twits to Twits Light. So no prep. You can be as silly as you want. First thing that comes to your mind, whatever. So, number 1, a little bit of backstory. I thought that Jay's mom and Smurf, as she was called, my goodness, the grandma, they had a really dumb reason that they had a falling out, which I don't think was realistic. I don't think that's actually what happened. There was probably some more things that happened beyond this. But give me a dumber or sillier reason why Jay's mom and grandma had a falling out besides a disagreement on the rules for cards.
Jay's mom started dating Gargamel. And if there's one thing the Smurfs don't like, it's Gargamel.
That's true. I think everything was fine until Ezreal was brought over. I think that's when the wheels fell off. I think no one liked Gargamel, and then the cat was just unbearable. It's funny that she's Smurf and not Smurfette too, isn't it? She's Smurf. She's Grandma Smurf.
Is there an Australian meaning to Smurf that maybe we're not understanding? Like, is that a slang from over there?
I'd say in this instance it's just a slang term for someone who's short.
Okay.
The Smurfs are quite small, so if you're a short ass, then you're a Smurf. I would say that's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
Either that or she blows a lot of cock, and she, it's the blue.
Well, she clearly does. She's got 3 sons with 3 different dads. And Jay's mom, who's from a different dad, also.
That's a great.
I mean, is that
reason.
confirmed, or you just
I'm pretty sure I read that.
Nice.
Yeah, right. I don't want to read more about the true story behind it. I have heard of the Pettengill family, but I'm excited. So a lamer reason than doesn't the rules of cards.
Yep.
The real reason they stopped talking to each other is that at 6:30 p.m. every night, Smurf wanted to watch the news, but her daughter was hell-bent on watching Neighbours. So there was a big fight over whether it was Neighbours time or news time, and the daughter lost and was kind of kicked out of the family. And Smurf hated Neighbours, and she couldn't work out why so many of the characters on Neighbours looked like her sons. She was just dumbfounded. So she refused to watch it in her house. She'd only watch the news at 6:30.
I love it. All right, number 2. This one's real short. I just want you to pick one of your favorite cartoon characters' names, and you can tell me if there's a connection to that character if you want, but I just want you to pick a cartoon character's name.
And keep it to ourselves or share it?
Nope, just tell us.
How about Inspector Gadget? Can I choose Inspector Gadget?
All right, you can choose Inspector Gadget.
Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse?
Ooh.
All right. Is there any reason why you picked these characters? I'm just curious.
Nope, just character that jumped into my head.
Brose?
I don't know, just a little bit of nostalgia.
Oh,
I was actually thinking
nice.
the other day that Inspector Gadget's probably due for another reboot. So let's go. Let's bring it on.
Well, number 3, you just picked the new nickname for each other's grandmothers. So, Brose, your grandmother's nickname, whichever one you want to assume, grandmother's nickname is now Mighty Mouse.
Mighty Mouse.
Ben, your grandmother's nickname is now Inspector Gadget. I would love for you to explain the story of how she got that name.
I'll just call Joy now and tell her new nickname is Mighty Mouse. But she'll love that.
And I will say, it can't be, well, Ben and Brose just picked these ones. No, give me something better than that.
It has to relate to her in some way. I can't just justify it by saying I was on a podcast. Well, first I'd have to spend half an hour explaining to her what a podcast is. And then and then I have to, it has to actually be a reason that relates to her and not this podcast.
I mean, you can lie as much as you want.
Well, my grandmother is quite short, much like Smurf, and she's getting shorter as she gets older. She's almost, I think she's 95 now. She's not a young woman. So I guess, the mouse part is easy. And she's strong. She's a battle axe. So she's a Mighty Mouse. That's fine. There we go. There we go. It works. I'll tell her. Oh, that's what I will tell her. And, I'll record the phone call and I'll send it to you. We'll see what happens.
You don't have to really do it.
I might get written out of the will. But we'll work it out. It'll be fine. My
grandma, Julie, she was a great cook. She spent a lot of time in the kitchen, so she used a lot of different kitchen gadgets.
A lot of gadgets.
That's just part of it, though, because she also loved telling dirty jokes. So if I had told her Inspector Gadget, she probably would have responded, "I'd like to inspect her gadget."
Yeah.
So I think it just would have stuck as within the family as just being like both. She's a master in the kitchen, but also she's got dirty jokes.
She's master of a blue pun.
This is like my favorite question that I put together. This is just so wholesome and funny. I love it.
Now let's all agree to never be creative again.
My game is also kind of wholesome and fun today.
Wholesome and fun, just like this movie.
Yeah. Well, when I initially wrote a plot summary for this, I thought it was a prequel to Zootopia. So I built my game around that idea. I'm going to give you a famous movie, and you tell me what animal I think should play the character in that movie.
Like the lead character?
I'm going to give you the character's name.
Okay.
So you both have a chance to guess. There's 7 of them, and so we'll see who can get the highest. You don't have to guess.
Right, so we're guessing which animal you think would play this character in an existing movie.
This main character. Yeah, that's correct.
Do I know the names of every single animal that you picked?
Maybe.
He's a fucking biology teacher, so
I try not to choose too obscure of animals.
Would all of these animals appear in a child's ABC book on animals?
All of them do begin with a letter that is A to Z.
I'm trying to work out how common they are.
You fucker.
Do you want the Latin name or the common name?
No, I'll just take the common, please. First movie, Ali.
Oh.
Which animal plays Muhammad Ali?
I would say, given recent events, it'd be a seal because Will Smith loves a bit of a slap. So I'm going with sea. A walrus is a bit bigger. Maybe a walrus. Big pepper slap.
Oh my goodness.
From a Will Smith walrus.
I immediately thought of a bear. I don't know if I have to be any more specific than that, but I was thinking just like a big bear.
Big bear. I like it.
I thought a kangaroo.
Oh, I like it. A boxing kangaroo.
Boxing.
Hey?
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. Next one, Forrest Gump.
Oh. Are we talking mammals here or are we talking any animal?
No, he's definitely like a guppy. He's like a fish of some kind.
Forrest Guppy.
Yeah.
Mama always said life is like a school of fish. I don't know why I did that as Bill Clinton, but I did. I feel like he's probably a dog of some kind, like a hound. I feel like a hound with like big brown eyes, like a big hound that follows you around everywhere and goes for runs for 6 weeks at a time.
I went with an ostrich.
Oh my God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I like it.
That should have been an easy one for me.
Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, I think Johnny Depp's a cat. So I think Scissorhands is definitely a cat with those claws. Yeah, I think it's a cat thing.
I feel like you would have picked like a lobster or a crab because you weren't that creative and you were like thinking snap motions.
Wow. Is there a way that I can answer these questions but also shit on you at the same time?
Emily will find that way.
Yay!
Armadillos have 8-inch claws, so I went with an armadillo.
God fucking damn it, Ben.
I thought you were going to say 8-inch something else, so that's good.
I didn't do that research. I don't know. Well, next one, Deuce Bigalow, male gigolo.
What?
Deuce Bigalow, male gigolo.
I don't know what this is.
I'll give you guys a clue on this one.
Oh, you don't know what this is? Oh.
The website called this animal the sluttiest of the sluttiest in the animal kingdom.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that'll help you.
Well, then why isn't it an ostrich?
Ostriches aren't that slutty.
Oh, right. I can't even think of a slutty animal.
A dolphin.
Dolphins are very slutty animals, according to this website, but it is not a dolphin that I went with.
Fuck!
That's a good guess, though.
That's a great guess. Wow.
Can you think of a sluttier animal, Brose?
Think of any? I've never thought of animals as being reckless sexually. It's it's incredible. I know a lot of monogamous animals, but I can't think of any slutty animals. How about flamingo? Let's go flamingo.
Okay, I did not see that flamingos were slutty. But
I don't
they
know.
look a little slutty. I don't know.
They look maybe, yeah.
It's a bonobo, which is a type of ape.
See, that's not even an animal, so that's just made up. That's great. What's a slutty? You didn't want to offend any of the animals in the kingdom, so you went, fuck it, let's make one up.
It's a primate. Okay.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, a monkey makes sense. Some type of monkey,
Yeah.
some type of primate. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, next one, Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter. Crocodile. I'm going with a crocodile.
Love it.
Because they just kill for fun, those things. They are reckless. They're insane.
I'm gonna pick a fox.
Oh. No, I went with a cow.
Okay, can you explain?
Well,
what?
I just think, a cow eating steak, like that idea, just the cannibal idea of a cow eating beef made me.
That's where mad cow disease came from.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it? Like that's and Lecter's a bit mad. Is that what you're saying? Is that what?
You're so fucking stupid.
Okay, next one. Lincoln.
As in Daniel
Abraham.
Day-Lewis Lincoln?
Yep.
I'm going to go with a bearded dragon.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because they're quite slender and they can stand up on their back legs quite.
And
they have a beard.
And they've got the beard. I mean, the beard thing too. Can you imagine like a bearded dragon with a top hat? Wouldn't that be the most adorable thing
absolutely.
ever?
This game's hard.
Yep.
Because I'm trying to think
spend a lot of
what
time
you would
thinking
pick.
about animals like Ben does. Yeah.
No, I really don't. I'm not a fucking biology teacher. I'm gonna go giraffe. It's gonna be a giraffe.
Oh yeah, giraffe's a good
It is
one.
a giraffe.
Oh fuck yeah!
What a guess! Wow.
Is that one correct answer? All right.
That was one correct
answer.
Okay.
Lincoln is a giraffe.
Last one, E.T.
Oh my god, are you serious? Can my answer be Yoda? He's not an animal. You know what? With this one, I could see a seal or a walrus.
I'm thinking maybe a baboon. They've got kind of that leathery, wrinkly face, haven't they? I'm going to go baboon. Is that right? Or macaw? No, what's the other one? Anyway, baboon. Let's go with baboon.
Ooh, I want to change my answer.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do an extinct animal, right? Dodo birds are extinct, right?
Yeah.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
It's actually a human.
Fuck off.
Is it Estelle Getty?
It is Estelle. Emily, you have to look up that reference later.
I do not understand.
Emily, you got one right, which is honestly more than I thought anyone would get. But thank you for playing. Brose, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. Why don't you plug your show before you go?
Yeah, Chatflix, chatflixpodcast.com.au or on iTunes or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. And we just look at, you're generally anniversary films, but we've been doing some more recent films lately, which is fun. So if you want to hear our thoughts on Doctor Strange and the, Army of Darkness, then we're talking about that as well. It's cool.
Awesome. And next week, we'll be watching the Korean action movie, The Man from Nowhere. And we'll be talking that with Nick from St. Paul Filmcast and Kyle and Nick on Film. So we're excited to have him back.
Oh, Nick on Films is cool. They're good episodes.
Yeah, they do.
I'm going to listen to that.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please like, rate, subscribe, share us with a friend or two. You can follow us on social media at IDYP_podcast on Twitter and Instagram, or you can email us at idrinkyourpodcast@gmail.com.
Before we go, Brose, just because we haven't had you since Stardust, in your best Daniel Day-Lewis impression, will you end our episode by saying, I drink your podcast, I drink it up?
Or drink your podcast, or drink it up.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.